In today's macro photography tutorial, we're capturing beautiful images of smoke. That means we're going to be using flash as well. So stick around and I'll get started in just a sec. Hi guys, I'm Ben from Adaptalux and welcome back to another macro photography tutorial where today we're photographing smoke. This is a really fun shoot that's easy for you guys to do at home, so you can follow along with what I'm doing here, and it's a really good excuse to use some flash instead of our normal LED lighting arms. I'll talk more about flash in just a moment, but for now I'm going to grab my camera and some incense cones. So then guys, this is my little shooting area for today. On my coffee table I've got my lighting here, but I've also got some incense cones. Now I like using cones because it means that the source of the smoke doesn't move as it burns down, whereas an incense stick, it's going to change the position of the smoke. So using a cone, really handy. And as you can see, the smoke is actually rising up nicely in a little column, and it's that column that we're going to photograph. This stuff just here where the turbulence is happening, that's what we're looking for. So I've set up my camera over here on a tripod and I'm going to be moving this around so that we can focus in on where the smoke is most interesting. Now, of course, we do need some lighting as well, and that means we've got our brand new second generation Adaptalux Xenon Flash lighting arms. I'm going to plug one of these in and show you how it works. For a shoot like this, we just need a single light source. It's going to be coming from the back, so shining through the smoke and highlighting all of the edges of the smoke as it moves around. It's also important to freeze the motion of the smoke. Using LED lights for this type of shoot is not ideal because there will be always a little bit of motion blur. We want to have a very quick burst of light and freeze the motion of the smoke as it's rising up. Now you can do that with your shutter speed and just use a very fast shutter speed, but it's not particularly ideal. We're going to be using the Xenon Flash lighting arms instead of the LED lighting arms that you see in our normal tutorials, and we've got a big update to these flash lighting arms. The ones that I used before, they were generation 1, but these ones are generation 2. There's some big changes and improvements to these lighting arms. Now, because we only need one, I'm also going to be using a Pod Mini. The flash lighting arms can be used with either a Pod Mini or a Pod 3, it doesn't really matter, but because I only need a single lighting arm, it's quite handy to use a Pod Mini. That's sat here on a little mini tripod, and I can just plug in the flash lighting arm and it's going to turn on and begin to charge up. Now, the indicator lights on the front of the Xenon Flash lighting arm, those are one of the changes. They're now a lot more clear as to what things mean. Now, this flashing light here means that I've not turned on boost mode, so the very first thing that I need to do is turn on boost mode on the Pod Mini, and I'm also going to turn the power all the way up to maximum. That's another change that we've made to the flash arms, is that they're no longer controlled using the pods, they're actually controlled using the control button on the bottom of the flash arm. So the power of the pod always needs to be on maximum and it always needs to have boost mode on, and then you don't have to touch the pod at all. You can change the speed of the flash using the button on the bottom of the flash arm. So as you can see, as I'm pressing that button, the lights on the front are changing and we're cycling through the different speeds of the flash. The speeds of the flash determine how fast it is, but also how bright it is. So we're going to be playing around with a couple of different brightness settings to see what works best for our smoke. And that is pretty much all that we need to do with our lighting setup. I'm going to just adjust this so it's pointing at the back of the smoke and pointing through towards my camera over there. There is one last thing that I need to do, and that's attach our flash trigger to the top of the camera. One of the biggest changes that we've made to the Xenon Flash lighting arms system is that it's now radio triggered instead of infrared. Now obviously that comes with some pretty big advantages, meaning that we don't need any line of sight anymore and we can get a much greater distance between the camera and the flash arms. And it also means that we can position the flash arms so that the indicator lights on the top are facing towards us instead of the little the IR window. Just a little advantage there, but it does bring a huge amount more smoothness to shooting with these flash lighting arms. We can position our arms much more freely, and it means that we can stop worrying about whether or not the lighting arm can see the emitter and all of that sort of stuff. Instead, we've got the flash trigger, which is radio. So as my incense happily burns away over here, it's time to take a look at our camera setup and settings. So as you can see, I've got my camera here in a portrait orientation, focused roughly on where the smoke is. Now you will need to do this in advance. Make sure you're using a manual focus on a manual lens so that you can focus on where the smoke is rising up. It will change and your autofocus will be a little bit too slow to keep up. So do make sure to focus your lens rather, where the smoke is going to be lit by the light. There's a little cross section just here where all of this turbulence is happening, and that is where I'm focused. The portrait orientation is pretty handy for getting as much of the smoke in as possible. It just means that as the smoke rises up here, we've got most of it in our frame. We can tweak it later on in post-processing. Now, taking a look at our settings, here's where things get interesting. Because we're using flash, the shutter speed really doesn't matter. It's the speed of the flash that is going to freeze the motion, so your shutter speed can be pretty much anything that you like. I'm using 1/200th of a second, which happens to be the sync speed of the flash. You can use anything slower than 1/200th of a second and it will work just fine. The rest of our settings are mostly chosen to make sure our background is completely black. So as I take a look at the camera here, you can see that we can't see anything. The photograph is completely dark, and it is pretty dark in my room here, but this is mostly due to the settings. I'm using ISO 1000, but my aperture is at f11, so I've got that manually set on the lens there, which is 100mm f2.8 lens, by the way. So this is making our shot completely dark, and that's because our flash hasn't gone off yet. Usually when we're using LEDs, you can see the result of the photo on the back of the camera, but with flash, you have to wait until the photograph is taken. So we're going to do that now, take some photos, and as you'll see, as the flash goes off, the white smoke will be highlighted against that dark black background. Now, you don't need to use the exact settings that I've just described, but the important part here is setting your exposure much, much lower so that the photo looks completely black in the absence of light. That's where the highlight is going to come from when the flash goes off. It's going to make the smoke much, much brighter and be exposed properly on the camera, but the background is going to remain dark. That's how we get that nice white smoke against a black background. You don't need to use a black backdrop if you don't want to. As long as there's some space between the smoke and whatever's behind it, then the light will drop off. The purpose of having the lighting behind the smoke is also so that we don't shed more light over onto the background, but the light shining through the smoke, I think, adds a lot more depth to it. You can experiment with the placement of your lighting, shining it from above or from the side or from behind indeed, but it's generally better to have it at sort of a 45-degree angle from the back of the smoke. So you're going to be lighting in from a 45-degree angle, and all of that light's going to get caught by the smoke, making it much brighter and leaving the background nice and dark. So far we've been shooting on flash level 3, which is a good all-rounder flash level, gives us some good brightness and some of the freezing capabilities of the flash, but we don't really need to freeze the motion of this smoke. It's not moving particularly fast, so we can get away with upping the flash power level up to maybe level 5 and losing a little bit of the speed of the flash, but also making it much, much brighter. So I'm going to change the brightness of the flash by pressing the control button on the back of the flash arm just a couple of times to bring us up to level 5. Now, as I did that, you will have seen that that fifth light, just as it was coming on, was at half brightness. That means that it's charging up to that level. It's a good indicator of when the flash is going to be ready to shoot again. So if I take a photo, I'll just reach over to the camera. you'll see that that fifth light is slightly dimmer for just a moment. That's the flash recycling. So when all of the lights at your desired level are full brightness as they are now, that means you're ready to take a shot again. So it's a good little indicator, and because we don't have to have the window of the flash arm pointing towards us anymore, we can always see those indicator lights and when the flash is ready to go. Now I've run out of incense on this little burner, so I'm going to put another one on and keep getting some new shots. This is one of those shoots that you can do for absolutely hours and hours if you want to. You can get just a few shots and burn just a single cone, or like me, you can go through quite a few, because every single shot is going to be completely unique. Every time you press the shutter button, the smoke has moved slightly and the patterns will be completely different. You can shoot over and over again and come out with all sorts of different interesting patterns. It is a little bit hit and miss. You can get a really good one 1 second and then the next one will be rubbish just because of the shape of the smoke, but that is the nature of this beast. Unfortunately, we can take hundreds and hundreds of shots and go through them later. You'll probably be throwing out most of them and just keeping the ones where the smoke was in the most interesting position. Now the last piece to this puzzle is post-processing, but it's a little bit tedious and I have talked about it all before, so I'm just going to link to the previous video that we did where the flash arms are the older ones, but all of the editing is still exactly the same. So I'm going to link up in the top right hand corner and at the end of the video to our previous smoke shoot, so you can go and watch the second half of that video that's all about editing these smoke photos to create some white background photos, adding color and seeing what kind of interesting applications you can use your smoke photos for. In the meantime, if you need some flexible lighting for macro photography, be it flash or LED, we have you covered. I highly recommend checking out the website. I'll link it down in the description. Everything that you've seen today is available on the website, and you can grab these Generation 2 flash arms. They're now available in the shop. I do also recommend checking out some of our other tutorials where we use both flash and LEDs to create all sorts of interesting effects in our macro photos. I'll link to some extra videos just here, and you can go and make sure to subscribe for lots more macro photography tutorials, ideas and inspiration coming in the future. For now, that's all I've got time for. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next time.